Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's exciting launch of tonight's exciting webinar series, exploring exciting careers for the community. This is a special webinar series that's put together by our program, which is dedicated to helping people to find jobs and to launch successful careers and find hatzlacha and parnasa. There's going to be every single night live, 9 o'clock here on COL. Each night we're going to explore another exciting career. Tonight I'm very excited. We have on the line with us an esteemed coder and programmer, Label Hecht, who works in one of the well-known companies, Protege, as a lead developer, and he leads a team of developers, and he has a tremendous amount of experience in the field. And he's going to share with us from his experience, what it's like in the field, how do you get into the field, what the financial opportunities are in the field. And this is your chance to sort of get a nice picture of the coding and programming world, what it's like, and get a feel for it. And actually, we're very excited to announce that Label will be launching a starters course next week, God willing. It's going to actually be spread over 2 months, 8 weeks, 2 months, 2 nights a week. It's going to teach you how to give you a basics in coding and programming. Is actually going to teach you how to make a live application and front end and back end, a real taste of the world of coding and programming to help you decide if you like it and give you a head start into this exciting career field if you're interested. So without further ado, I thank you, Label, for your willingness to come on and present. The Label is actually all the way out in the West Coast. He's joining us from sunny Redondo Beach, California. And I'm going to give the floor over to Label. Label is going to present for 20 minutes. He's going to give a 20-minute presentation. And then there's going to be 10 minutes for Q&A. For those of you that are watching through YouTube, there's on COL, there's an email. You could email us and we could send you a way to log in so that you could post questions at the end of it. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Label. Label, just give me 1 second to give you the host controls, and then the floor is all yours. Okay, Label, I gave it over to you, and I'm going to fade into the background.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi Wordy. Thank you, COL, for hosting this. So the goal is in this 20 minutes, we're going to keep it short. We'll try and go over quickly what does it mean to have a career in the field of tech, of technology. What is it, and how can you break in? We're not really going to go very deep into the technicals, how things work, but we'll try to give you a little bit of a taste. So here we go. Okay, so just a quick introduction. My name is Label Hecht. I work at a company called Protege. There's actually quite a few other from people in Lubavitchers that work at this company. The primary, assets of the company are sites like Swagbucks, MyPoints, Inbox Dollars, and we're out in California. How did I get into the field, and what do we do day to day? I'll try and save for a little bit later in the presentation. And just a little disclaimer, this presentation reflects my own personal experiences and how I feel about it. Not everybody necessarily feels this way, but I definitely like my field, and I'd love to share with you a little bit about it. So what are we going to cover in these 20 minutes? First of all, what are the various technical roles? Not everybody's a programmer, not everybody's a marketing person. What are the roles in the tech, or really any company, because today any company has technology aspects to it. Very quickly, what is the web? What's the internet in short and in English? And what are some of the benefits of working in this industry? Second, how can you break into the industry? A few different paths. How to know if this industry is for you, and some resources to help you get started. So first of all, what are some of the roles in a tech company, or really technical roles in any company? So we're really going to focus on this first line, programmer, which is really the same thing more or less as a software engineer, which is more or less the same thing as a web developer. You'll see these words and names sprinkled all around in different variations, but for the most part, a programmer, developer, web developer, software developer, front-end engineer, they all mean more or less the same thing. It means that you write code to build web applications. What is a web application? Facebook is a web application. COL Live is a web application. Chabad.org is a web application. These are, I guess we'll get into that a little bit more in the next slide. Then there's a bunch of other roles as well. There's the data side. So the programming side is, writing the code more or less to build these applications and to keep them afloat. And then there's the data side. Maybe you're not actually writing the code that a user will interact with on a day-to-day basis, but maybe you are doing some analysis of the data. Maybe your boss has an e-commerce company and they sell toilet paper, and they want to know which brand sells the best. So maybe they hire a data scientist to go in and create some models to decide on which day of which month does this particular brand of toilet paper sell the best. So that's kind of another path in this general field of technology. Then there's another field, QA, quality assurance, software testing. These are the people who, some of them write actually some code that will go and automatically do some testing of your code. Maybe they'll even go to the site like a little robot and try and find some bugs, try and make sure everything works. Maybe they just manually go in and test each aspect of the site, the program, the app, to make sure it is working as planned. Product manager. So product manager decides what the product should be. So they're actually, in some of the bigger technology companies, most product managers have basic programming or technical skills. But on a day-to-day basis, they're not writing code. They're deciding, maybe they're creating wireframes. And they're talking to the design team and the programming team. And they are deciding what should a user see when they come to the site? Which message should we show them? How can we think of interesting ways to keep the user on the site, etc. Then there's a whole nother field, which to be honest, I don't really know much about. And that is more the IT, networking, cybersecurity side of things. So making sure bad people don't get into your network and do bad things to your site. In general, making sure everything's hooked up, all the plumbing for all the internet and the Wi-Fi and all that good stuff is working properly. So that's a whole nother field, also a big industry, but I don't necessarily know all that much about it. Then there's the designers, which are also pretty technical. And there's actually becoming more and more of a merging between like front-end developers and engineers and designers. There's a lot of new tools that allows designers to basically design things and to spit out the code straight from that tool that they're working on. So this is also somewhat of a technical role. And then there's a whole nother field called marketing. And there's the more technical side of marketing, which is maybe SEO, search engine optimization, which basically means, hey, how do we get Google to like our site and show it in the top of the results? There's all sorts of things that Google wants your site to do and to show, have the correct tags, have the correct labels, make sure your content's good. So that's search engine optimization. And there's just marketing, social media marketing, posting things, making sure the copy is good. So those are more or less the various roles when we talk about the tech industry, but I'm going to focus more on the programming side. So quickly, what is the web? Why is it important that I have this slide in here? Because I would say probably, this is just a number I'm pulling out of my hat, but probably 90% of programming and technology jobs today are web-based and are related to some sort of web application, a mobile app, which is all the web, the interconnected web. If you're Elon Musk and you're creating rockets, that's a little bit different, though that's probably also connected to the web. But for the most part, any work that we do is on the internet. So what is the internet? What is the web? The web is basically, in short, a network of connected computers, sometimes we call them servers, that communicate and send information to each other. So sometimes you may hear the word API. API is basically just a way of saying, hey, there's this computer, there's this server somewhere that says, hey, you can request information from me. Maybe you want to request the weather, and I'll respond with the weather. In general, web pages are made up of three basic components: HTML, which is the structure of the page. There's tags that show exactly, is this a heading tag? What should more or less, sometimes it's called markup. CSS is the style, how the page should look. Should it be red? Should it be blue? Should it be faded? And then JavaScript is a programming language that runs in the browser. It's more or less the only programming language that runs in the browser, and it can create dynamic behavior on the site. And then you have some kind of backend server and database that the front end can get data from that backend server and database. So then, what happens more or less is that this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript blob gets sent back from the server to either your website. Many mobile apps that you download are actually just websites that have been kind of packaged to be a mobile app. And that's why I'm saying mobile apps are more or less made up of the same building blocks, especially today. There is becoming more and more of a merging between real mobile apps that you download from like an app store, from the iPhone store, or from the Google Play Store. The building blocks are the same. So if you learn how to code for the web, it's not so much different to then learn how to build a mobile app. So I'm just going to quickly show you. I went ahead and clicked View Page Source. If you go to any page in Chrome and click View Page Source, and you right-click View Page Source, you'll see the code, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that gets sent back. So I took tonight's lecture page, and I just want to quickly show you. So this is more or less HTML. So you'll see, if you go my name, if you go and look at the page, you'll see that my name is in bold. So it's a strong tag towards the top. Then there's these P tags, which are basically just saying, these should be regular little paragraph lines. And there's an A tag, which will be a link. So this is basic markup, just the bare bones of what the page will have on it. So the browser is just a tool that can translate this code and make it look pretty. It takes the instructions sent in this code and it makes it look nice. Here is some JavaScript. If you see there's a script tag, this maybe looks like it's code to pop up some kind of pop-up, a slider, maybe one of the ads or something like that. And then here is some CSS. You could see what's the width, how big should this be, some padding, maybe there's a background color if you see towards the bottom. So that's more or less the look of the page. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but just so you see, you can right-click View Page Source on any web page, and you will see what was sent back from that that web applications server. Okay, so now the question is, that's what the web is. How do you break into the industry? How do you get a job in this industry as let's say as a programmer, maybe even as a data scientist or a data analyst, something along those lines. So there's generally three paths. There's the go get a computer science degree. You can try and go to a boot camp, or you can basically teach yourself using online resources and books. If you're going to go to the computer science degree route, first of all, there's some pros. It's more or less the conventional path. That's how it's always been done. It could make it easier to get your first job, and it might be required for some types of jobs. Maybe they require that you have a computer science degree. The problem is it takes a very long time. It's a minimum of 4 years. It's a little bit more theoretical. You're not necessarily doing as much building of web applications. Could be very expensive, especially if you're going to a big name school. And my own take is that the computer science degree is really more relevant when it's a big name school anyway. So if you're going to Stanford, you're going to Carnegie Mellon University, then your computer science degree probably carries a lot more weight versus something like a boot camp or being self-taught. If you are, then you can try and go to a boot camp. What is a boot camp? A boot camp is basically a very short trade school. Sometimes they're 14 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, where it's very packed, 8-10 hours a day. I personally went to one of these. It's, in my opinion, it's best to do these full time. They can be a little bit expensive, but they are a much quicker way to get into the industry. They're very much action and project based. You build projects. There's a big focus on building projects. There are some boot camps that have actually no cost up front, and they basically just take a percentage of your first and second year salary. And the environment is very conducive to get involved in learning quickly, which I think is a huge, huge plus of this route. I'm probably similar in computer science route, but as opposed to teaching yourself, because everybody's involved in building things. Some of the cons are, I would say, even if you're going to go to a boot camp, you want to have a little bit of knowledge before if you want to be successful at the boot camp, just a little bit, minimum of a few weeks. They can be expensive. In my opinion, for them to really be valuable, you want to try and do the full-time ones. And it can be a little bit harder to get your first job. And notice I keep stressing first job, because once you're in the industry, it gets a lot easier from there. And the actual credentials of how you got into the industry become less and less relevant. Then you can teach yourself. You can buy books. There's a ton of great online resources. It's basically free, self-paced. The cons are obviously you need strong self-motivation, though there are some very good online communities like freecodecamp.org to get you started. And it can definitely be a little bit harder to find your first job than like a boot camp, for example, because a lot of the boot camps even have pretty good career help. Now, there's a bonus option, and some of you may be able to take advantage of this, and that is to get through some kind of side door. If you have a brother who works in technology, maybe he's even the CEO of a small technology company, maybe even an Amazon company, maybe they have a database with a lot of data, and they'll let you come in as an intern and try and analyze that data for you. Maybe they'll let you create some kind of small internal tool that they can use. This can, I can go on with some other examples, but there are definitely ways to kind of circumvent the system if you know someone. This is definitely a good use of connections. If you have them in the industry, people are always more likely to hire someone that they know. It's just the reality. So there is kind of that side door option of maybe becoming an intern even when you don't know all that much yet. But it's difficult and not everybody knows someone. So just quickly, how did I get into it? I studied on my own for a few months before. Then I went to a boot camp. The one I personally went to was called Coding Dojo. I personally had a great experience there. And it did take me a few months to find the job. I reached out to some people in my network. I got an interview and was able to find the job, and didn't take such a long time. What are some of the benefits of the industry? Number one, it's a very financially lucrative industry. And that's because if you see the last point, demand for these roles is high and growing. If you look at the US Bureau of Labor statistics, there's very high projections for the disparity between the need for these jobs and computer science students and even boot camp graduates who are coming in with the skills needed. So the demand is very high and it can be very financially lucrative. I would hesitate to give numbers because I don't know exact numbers. You can find some online. You can try and email me and I can try to give you my best guess, or you can ask in the questions after. The flexibility, in my opinion, from what I've seen and talked to other people, is unmatched as compared to any other industry. The ability to work remote is pretty prevalent in the industry. Most companies have generous time off. Some companies allow even flexible work hours. And you don't necessarily have to work for a company. There's a lot of freelance and consulting opportunities. Especially as a programmer, there's, you're always working on an interesting problem. Things are always breaking. There's always new problems to deal with. It's very non-monotonous at all. There's constant mental and creative stimulation in this field, which is nice. Another perk is once you know how to build things, you can basically build almost anything you want that involves code. You can build websites, mobile apps, your own personal sites. You can write a little program that will automate all the lights in your house and turn off the air conditioners when you want. You can do whatever you want. Basically, the opportunities are endless. Can also be great for entrepreneurship. A lot of founders of companies get stuck when they're trying to create a technical company because it's hard to find a technical co-founder, a CTO for the company. They're usually very expensive, and it's sometimes hard to find the right one. But if you can build it yourself and you have also the business skills, even if you're not necessarily the best programmer out there, if you have basic skills, it can be great for entrepreneurship as well. And finally, I think this is really, if you're going to try this industry out, even if it doesn't necessarily work out for you, every career or job can benefit from having good technical skills, whether you're in marketing, even, even if you're a doctor and you're doing some social media marketing for your private practice, if you understand the basics of how the internet works and how to make sure that your practice comes up first, that can be a huge plus. Now, there's a lot of talk about, everybody says, oh, just go learn to code and you'll have a great job. Is it for everyone? The answer obviously is probably not. It's probably not for everyone. I'm a little bit over time here, so we'll quickly finish up. It's probably not for everyone. However, you can try it, and if it doesn't work out for you, these skills will be valuable regardless. So it's definitely worth giving it a try. Some ways to figure out if it's for you: definitely try some kind of online course. Decide that you're going to do 2 weeks of something. Don't get stuck. Don't fall into what they call tutorial purgatory, where you basically watch a bunch of tutorials and you can't really find something that sticks. Take one little course, maybe even buy it on Udemy or something like that. Go through the whole course and then see if it's interesting to you. You can try and find a friend or a family member who works in the industry and see if you can have a visit to the office or talk to some people in the industry. My uncle, David Levin, who helped arrange this as well, this is one of the things I asked him when I wasn't really sure if I wanted to get involved in this. He took me to his company, Bloomberg, and was able to set up a couple of meetings there. And it was very helpful. I was able to see the industry firsthand, see the people working, and that could be very helpful in seeing if you want to get involved. Last but not least, please ignore the stereotypes. Just try and see if you like it. There's a lot of stereotypes about developers. Maybe they're very geeky. Maybe, oh, that person, they've been programming and taking computers apart since they're a kid, so for sure they could do this, but I probably can't. Please try and stay away from those, especially if you don't see yourself as, the stereotypical geek. Maybe there's a lot of opportunity for business-minded people who also have the technical skills. If you have technical skills, you're a good programmer, and you can communicate well with business and with product, that can be a huge advantage. So I think part of the reason why there's so few computer science graduates every year, which there are, you can look this up, which is why the demand is so high. I think it's partly because of stereotypes. I don't know, but definitely try and stay away from those.
Okay, Label, before we start the Q&A segment.
Just give me 1 more second, 10 more seconds. I'll finish these up quickly. First of all, there's definitely no magic bullet. When it comes to boot camps, they'll promise you, we can make you a developer and you can earn $150,000 in 5 weeks. There's no magic bullets, but there definitely are shorter ways and there are longer ways. The beginning will be tough. Sorry, not touch, will be tough, but you'll get through it. By the way, our kind of Gemara way of thinking is very much appreciated in the field. A couple of good resources, freecodecamp.org and Codecademy. When starting out, try and just do something where you can build. Don't get stuck just watching tutorials. And this is partly what I was saying before about staying away from stereotypes, but we don't necessarily just sit behind a computer and type away and code all day. There's meetings, there's collaboration, there's teams. So if you're worried about the antisocial aspect or whatever, definitely don't be worried about that.
Okay, Label.
All right.
Label?
Yes.
The one thing that I wanted to ask you, in terms of salaries, what would an entry-level coder make, and what is the potential for people to make in the industry? Okay, so this is obviously a very difficult question because it varies widely. It's like saying, what does a lawyer make? There's lawyers that make $70,000 a year. There's lawyers that make $300, $400, $500 million a year. But I do think it's reasonable to believe that an entry-level programmer, even without a computer science degree, can probably expect to make between $60,000 and $90,000 a year, let's say, depending on where you are. I think that's pretty reasonable. Then within a couple of years, you should definitely be making 6 figures, assuming you perform well. So that's what I would say more or less. You can look at, there's websites like levels.fyi, levels.fyi, that will actually show you real salary submissions from companies. Some of these companies are very big companies. Obviously, companies like Google and Facebook will be paying a lot more than smaller mom and pop companies, but they're also a lot harder to get into. So it varies widely, but
yeah, you can push a little more if you have more questions on that.
Okay, we're going to segue over to the Q&A segment of this, but before we do that, I just would like to say one of the reasons that I out of this series, I chose to do the coding first is because I feel it's one of the most important ones to highlight in our community with all the people that spend years studying the Gemara and the Talmud, and really it lends itself very naturally for many people to get into this field. And I've actually met so many people in the community that started self-teaching themselves and ended up in a position where did the boot camp and ended up in a very nice position. And so it's really an excellent career pathway that's very suited to our educational background. And I really would encourage anyone that has an interest, they should explore it, which is why, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, we're actually very excited. Label and another instructor will actually be launching a beginner's coding and programming course next week. It's going to be a 2-month course, 2 nights a week, 36 hours in the evenings. It's free, and they'll give you the basics to see if you like it. And if you do like it, it'll give you a head start. So those of you that are interested, please definitely reach out to us at workforce@jccgci.org. We'd be happy to talk to you and help you. It's a totally free course. Okay, so now we'll do a few minutes of Q&A. For those of you that are logged in on Zoom, you'll see there's a little Q&A button on the bottom, and I already see one person who's asked a question. So go ahead, Label, to answer some questions, and then.
Okay, so we got a question. Which program? I assume you're saying which programming language would be best to learn. You started a Python class, and you're wondering if that's the right choice. Python is very much considered to be a good language to start with. First of all, it reads very nicely, almost like English, and it's kind of simple to get up and running. It doesn't require a lot of complicated infrastructure to get started. There's some great frameworks where you can build stuff. So definitely Python is a good choice. Yeah, that's a great choice. One other thing I wanted to quickly add, it sounds like I'm, painting this Gan Eden, this paradise view of the industry. It definitely is a very good industry. Obviously, some people will probably have maybe not as much enthusiasm about the industry as I do, but I definitely stand by all these points. And from everybody I speak to in the industry, one of the things I noticed, the first thing when I went to visit Bloomberg with my uncle, I noticed that everybody really enjoyed their work. They enjoyed, a lot of people wait for 5 o'clock every day to get home. I noticed the people in this industry actually enjoy what they're doing. It's stimulating, it's interesting. So you can take my enthusiasm with a grain of salt, but I would definitely try and explore it a little bit.
Okay, I see also somebody asked if the slides of your presentation are available. Yes, if you email us at workforce@jccgci, again, workforce@jccgci.org, we'd be happy to share that with you. Okay, this has really been a wonderful evening. Label, I can't thank you enough for taking off from your valuable time, especially it's actually still just the end of your workday, and you were able to do this for us. So thank you very much, and we're really looking forward to that.
Should we take this last question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure, please. Go take the question.
So somebody asked, how long did it take me to get coding down, and is there a lot of stress? So more or less my path was, probably a few months, I was kind of on and off, just doing some online courses, and then I went to a boot camp, which was about 4 to 5 months. So until I actually got my job as a developer was probably close to a year, and I think that's reasonable to expect. Was there a lot of stress? At the beginning, it's hard. I happen to personally be terrible at math, and some of the intro to coding stuff are a lot of like algorithmic stuff. I didn't do very well with that, so I was stressed about it at the beginning a little bit. But you get past that, and as long as you enjoy the building aspect, you'll enjoy it. But yeah, the beginning could be tough, and it could be a little bit stressful. I just want to add one more thing. I'm definitely available. You can try and email me, labelheft@gmail.com, leibelhecht@gmail.com. I will try my best to help you navigate the beginning of this if I can.
Okay, now I would just like to finish off the JCC Workforce Program is a program here in Crown Heights dedicated to helping people find jobs, to prepare for careers. We have free one-on-one counseling. interview prep, aptitude testing. We have these free courses. It's a complete job and career resource for our community. So at any time, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help, and we're looking forward to your success. I want to wish you all a wonderful evening. Tremendous haslacha. All of the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.